Yeah, hello. You're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Stewart Lee. I've been away for ages, but I'm back and filling in for, well, in between Dave Quantick and everybody else and Pete Sargent on one-way single-parent family favourites. And as you can see from that garbled introduction, you know, it takes skill and confidence to get used to presenting radio, even the most rudimentary level. And it's a skill that in many ways I've clearly lost. This is the Chocolate Watch Band from 1967. Great, that was the Dirty Pins from a new 4-track EP called Deaf to the Middle Class, and that was I Feel So Milton Keynes, which includes the line, "In my local job centre my intelligence works against me and there are no vacancies for pagan fatalists." I actually met the Dirty Pins. I was doing a benefit. I did stand up at a benefit in a pub in Pimlico, which was organised by the artist Harry Pye to raise money to cover a parking fine that he'd had. And the Dirty Pins were on, they were great. And that's their first release, I think. And before that, the Chocolate Watch Band from 1967 from a brilliant kind of career overview that's out now called Melts in Your Brain, Not on Your Wrist. Loads of stuff came in the 6 months I was away. It's all great. We got off to a shaky start today, didn't it? It was embarrassing. People listening must have thought, it's someone who doesn't really know what they're doing. But I think it'll probably pick up. And then there's an interesting guest in the second half, Adam Buxton. He's got a new show in Edinburgh Fringe this summer. He's doing his own new show. And hopefully he'll talk about when he tried to make a documentary about the Fall that didn't work, because that would give us an excuse to play lots of Fall records. Well, I don't really know what to do for the first hour, though. I think I thought I'd start off by saying what's on in London. Some things that are on in London. If you live in London, as everyone should, there's always lots of stuff you can go and see. And a lot of it is of a musical bent, which means that you can play the sound of it on the radio. On Monday night, Black Mountain are on. They're from Vancouver. They're on the Metro, wherever that is, I don't know, West 1. And they had an album out earlier this year that was great, Black Mountain, by Black Mountain on Jaguar Records. And here's a track off it. This is called Set Us Free. Yeah, that was Black Mountain from Vancouver. Most of them work in mental health, interestingly enough. I remember that being better than that when I listened to it in January. I'm sorry if you thought it was a bit boring. I must have been late at night when I was listening to it. It's not Sunday lunchtime music, is it? Now, I'm not in London on Wednesday night. I've got to go to Lincoln, where I will stay in the annex of the cathedral. You can stay in an ecclesiastical school there for £20 a night. It's fantastic. And you have a communal bathroom with all pictures of religious missionaries and stuff in it. It's fantastic. I recommend it if you're ever in Lincoln. I'm doing stand-up there on Wednesday night. And but if I was in London on Wednesday night, it's great. There's so many things you could go and see. Look, listen to what's on. Oh no, Tuesday. Oh, not Wednesday. Well, Tuesday I can't do it either. I'm doing Freak Show. But Tuesday night, there's Sweet Honey in the Rock and Billy Jenkins, whose show me and Dave and Pete inherited. Billy Jenkins is on Tuesday night. Well, he's on Tuesday lunchtime at the Jazz Plus at the Victoria Embankment Gardens, and Tuesday night Sweet Honey in the Rock at the Barbican. And the mid-80s average to good creation label rock band The House of Love have reformed. And on Wednesday night, I was in the Red Rose last night in Finsbury Park, and I think it's not listed anywhere, but I think it's free improv night, first Wednesday of every month. And I noticed that Gail Brand's on, the trombonist, so we'll play a little mix of all those four people. Also, I've been smoking too much. I feel it must be unpleasant to listen to. Kind of, you think, I hope he manages to finish saying that sentence before he dies. Anyway, here's a track from Gail Brand, Phil Durant, Pat Thomas and Mark Sanders' album under the name Lunge, which they called Strong Language. And you might be able to see her on Wednesday at the Red Rose. And this is called No Filters. You're listening to One-Way Single Parent Family Favourites on Resonance 104.4 FM. I'm Stewart Lee, and later on I'm being joined by Adam Buxton, a comedian, filmmaker and polymath. He also invented rice paper. And that was, we were just listening to Billy Jenkins there from his new album When the Crowds Have Gone, and that was called I Like Rain. Billy, of course, invented this loose format for this show of play what you want and have some guests on, and then he handed it on to me, Pete and Dave, a couple of years ago. And that was great. You can see Billy on Tuesday lunchtime, 12:30 at Victoria Embankment Jazz Plus, Victoria Embankment Gardens. And on the top of his press release, I notice he's described as the great unrecognised genius of South London by me. Before that, we heard The House of Love from the 87 or something, and they're on supporting the Deers at the Astoria on Tuesday night. I remembered that being so exciting when it came out, and to be honest, it sounded portentous and dreary when I heard it again there, and I'm sorry for wasting 3.5 minutes of your time by playing it. I don't know what I should do more planning for these shows, but I hurt my leg actually. I couldn't do it, and my leg was hurting. And before that, Sweet Honey and the Rock, who were on Tuesday night at the Barbican at 8 p.m. And the first one, that was Gail Brand, Phil Durant, and Pat Thomas and Mark Sanders with a track called No Filters from the album Strong Language. And I think Gail Brand's one of a bunch of people, along with Lowell Coxill, on at the Red Rose on Seven Sisters Road, Finsbury Park, on Wednesday night. Now, something that has nothing to do with anything, I just liked it. This is LCD Soundsystem, and a track that probably will strike a chill in the heart of all Resonance listeners and presenters. It's called Losing My Edge. Hi, you're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM. It's not necessary, is it, for me to say hi or hello after the tracks? That's the sound of someone who's really out of practice with radio. You know, we just assume that we're in a relationship if you're sitting there listening. That was LCD Soundsystem and Losing My Edge. And as if to demonstrate the extent to which we here in the studio today are losing our edge, we're now going to play something by the unfashionable 1970s English progressive rock behemoths, Van de Graaff Generator, who've reformed. Their new album was really good, and they've got lots of gigs at the moment, which I can't go to because I'm doing stand-up all the time. On Friday the 8th of July, they're at the Shepherd's Cross Empire, when I'll be at the Latchmere doing an unrehearsed preview of my new Edinburgh show to 8 people. So the choice is clear that you should be at the Shepherd's Empire watching Van de Graaff Generator. Here's a track from their second album, which before we play it, it's called The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other. Now, the original British sleeve had a picture of a Van de Graaff Generator, which is a kind of lightning rod, in the middle of a sort of sea of brown waves, with the 4 members of Van de Graaff Generator flying across it on a kind of magic raft. That was considered inappropriate for the American market, where the sleeve was replaced with pictures of the band floating in kind of crystal balls in space with hands reaching out, touching each other. It's difficult to know which one of those would make for the least attractive purchase to the uninitiated consumer. Anyway, here's a track from a fantastically packaged reissue of The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other from 1970, and this is called Refugees. That was Van de Graaff Generator from 1970 here on Resonance 104.4 FM at the cutting edge of modern music. That was from a reissue of The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other, and that was Refugees. And they're playing the Shepherd's Cross Empire on Friday the 8th. Now, I was just in New Zealand doing stand-up for a month, and in Auckland, and I was in this brilliant venue called The Classic, which was a former porn cinema, which had a fabulous ambience and a great little intimate room. But before that, there was all these old posters lying around there, and in the 70s, The Classic was the home of the Auckland punk scene. New Zealand had a punk scene. It was very small. It involved about 8 people and about 10 bands with different names. But I became sort of fascinated while I was there by it, and went around trying to buy everything I could from that little era. So here's a few tracks from late 70s Auckland punk scene. This is starting off with The Scavengers, and this is called Mr. X. So I was downstairs answering the door. Now, yeah, that was some old New Zealand punk. That was the Scavengers, first of all, with a song called Mr. X. And then the second one by then that we didn't mean to play because it had swearing in it. It was an accident, but that was that. And then after that was Proud Scum, I'm a Rabbit. Now, our guest's here, but he'll probably need a second to prepare himself. So let's hear some other old New Zealand stuff. This is the Pin Group from the early 80s, fronted by Roy Montgomery, who you might know as a sort of ambient guitarist. Such was the group's debt to Joy Division that locals actually used to call them Roy Division, and this is a track by them called Ambience. That was the Pin Group from a compilation of all their stuff, that what they ever did, called The Pin Group, on Stilt Breeze Records from New Zealand, 1981. And we're joined by Adam Buxton. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Stuart?
All right.
Where did you find out about the Pin Group? Can I just ask?
Well, in New Zealand.
Right.
To be fair, I was in New Zealand, and I knew the bloke Roy Montgomery because he'd done other stuff, and then. It's funny, when you go to another country, you sort of think, I want to find out about all this stuff. And also, I really loved it. Do you remember all that 80s New Zealand music, like the Chills and the Verlaines and and the Sneaky Feelings?
Flying Nun records.
Flying Nun, yeah. So I kind of imagined that New Zealand would be full of people like that making sort of vaguely avant-garde, jangly pop on 4-track recorders. But in fact, like anywhere, it was mainly a lot of bands that wanted to sound like Creed.
Yeah, exactly. And mix in some hip-hop influences.
Yeah, but there was it was New Zealand Music Month, which meant that the 3.5 million people that live there were desperately trying to support their local music so that the people that were musicians could have a crack at it rather than having to, because everyone has to do about 3 jobs because there's so few people there. Any branch of the performing arts is unsustainable, basically. Yeah.
We went there, me and Joe went there about a year ago to do a commercial with Keith Harris.
Oh, right.
Yeah, big time, Stuart.
So is that that's one of the things you do now, isn't it? Directing bits of commercials and stuff?
No, we were in it.
You were in it, right?
Yeah,
right,
it was a
right.
no-brainer. It was take the money and go to New Zealand.
Right.
And it was really, there was no option but to do it. But it was amazing. It was just after the Lord of the Rings trilogy had finished filming. And I wasn't prepared for the enormous Gollum thing. They got like a massive monster version of Gollum in the airport.
Oh, I didn't notice that. It's gone. Where was
How
this?
could you
Wellington?
not notice that? I think it was Wellington.
Because I flew into Auckland. They didn't have it there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so in Wellington they've got an enormous Gollum there, which is bigger than the entire airport practically. It's quite freakish. And the whole, almost everyone you met there had been involved in the production in some way.
Yeah, or extras or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there was a farmer down on the South Island taking people on tours of his land, which was the site of Hobbiton.
Right.
But none of the stuff was there now. So it was just some fields.
It was just
fields, right? And he was going, this is where Bilbo Baggins lived.
Well, you see that
nothing.
Yeah. The reason we were there in the first place was that this commercial they were shooting for Surf, I think it was, was supposed to look like a sunny day in the English countryside. And because it was January, the advertising agency didn't want to take a chance, obviously, on the English weather. So they flew the production out to New Zealand thinking, well, you're guaranteed sunshine there. So, of course, it rained solidly for 2 weeks. And we just sat in a caravan with Keith Harris.
Where was this? Which part of New Zealand was that in?
It was the North Island.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of around the middle.
What was Keith Harris like?
He was initially very nice, but very needy indeed.
Yeah.
And he just turned down the chance to appear on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here,
right,
which was the best series he turned down, the one with John Lydon on it.
Right.
And
that would have been great. It would have been good for him.
It would have been very good for him.
Would Orville have gone with him?
He would have gone with him, yeah.
So it would have been Keith Harris would Keith Harris and Orville have been like having insects poured over them and stuff then together?
Yeah. They would have done all the challenges and it would have been great. But he turned it down and was very snooty about it and said, I can't believe they even asked. I'd never do something like that.
Right.
So sure enough, he was on The Farm earlier this year. I don't know if you saw that, Channel 5's reality nightmare.
Right.
And there he was. He decided not to turn down The Farm and star alongside the likes of Ron Jeremy and other minor porn stars in this farm in the middle of England somewhere.
I worked with him once on Harry Hill, and he did seem... a lot of ventriloquists, I don't know if you've ever known enough to form a general opinion about them, but he seemed slightly resentful of Orville.
Yeah.
Did he? And Rod Hull was the same. I also worked with about Emu. They resent the fact that people are that the bird is famous, the puppet bird is famous.
That's right.
As if they have forgotten that it is actually their own arm. they do have some power over it. What have you been asked to do any reality television shows?
No, we got the closest I've come is being asked to like present them.
Right.
And but no, I secretly deep down I wish that I could get asked to do one of those.
Well, I got asked to do Celebrity Fame Academy. This was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was kind of 4 years since I'd been on television, and I just thought, how far down a list must they have got?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and one where you had to learn to row as well, which I didn't do that one either. Richard Herring did it. Richard Herring did the same.
Rowing Academy.
Yeah, Rowing Academy. God, that's not very...
And how did he get on there? I didn't see that.
He did very well, actually,
Yeah.
because he's a competitive man, and
Yeah.
he was determined to win. And he became friends as a result of that with Jonathan Aitken.
Right.
Which is odd. Do you when I used to be in a double act, and people always go, "Oh man, when are you doing that again?" But listeners will know Adam from Adam and Joe. And are you doing any stuff like that we can see ever, or are you off on your own doing things, or what's happening?
I suppose I don't know. We're just. The thing is that after we did the Adam and Joe show for Channel 4, we sort of tried to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
At the behest of Channel 4, and
As what?
as a more mainstream proposition.
Oh yeah. I hate it when they try and do that.
Yeah, and we thought, as you do, well, what we'll do is we'll have our cake and then we'll eat it.
Yeah.
And collect the money for carrying on doing what we do. But no, all the ideas we came up with were rejected, really. And the only option we had was to sort of take the jobs they were offering us, and still do offer us, I'm glad to say. But they're all things like, do you want to host some panel show, which is like a film quiz, a bit like Nevermind the Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
And that pitch comes through every week. And then, so if you want to say yes to that, then great. But no, I'm no good at those things, really.
But you've got a beard now.
I've got a gigantic beard, yeah, it's freakish. I look sort of religious or,
It looks good, but that would limit some work off it. They don't want a bearded man hosting.
No, I've already started losing jobs through being heavily bearded.
Yeah, it doesn't fit with post-pub entertainment.
No.
It looks too philosophical.
Yeah, well, I've got a massive beard because I'm taking a show to the Edinburgh Festival, so this is one of the first things that I've done on my own.
And does the show requires a beard?
The show requires a beard.
Well,
yeah.
you know what? I try and do this like proper radio,
yeah.
Right? And now you've said I need a beard for my show. People will be thinking, I wonder what kind of show it could be that he would have to grow a beard for. So what I'm going to do now is play one of the records that you've brought in.
That's a tease.
I know, and the people will be thinking,
wow.
I'm going to listen to this.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what it would be.
Some people will be thinking, Stewart Lee sold out, he's teasing.
So what's this? It's a Spoon track. What's it called?
Oh yeah, this is off Spoon's new album, and it's called I Summon You. I'm obsessed by this band.
Here it is then. That was Spoon. You're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM, London's independent, volunteer-staffed arts radio fiasco. I'm Stewart Lee. This is One Way Single Parent Family Favourites, and that song was chosen by our guest Adam Buxton. What Spoon that was?
That was Spoon from their new album, Gimme Fiction. They're my favourite Texan band.
Oh, right. It's good to have divide things by regional categories, yeah. I just think.
Have you been to Austin, Texas?
No, I'd love to, though.
That sounds like a good place to be.
Yeah, especially they have that festival, don't they?
Yeah. Richard Linklater, he's from Austin, I believe.
Yeah, that's like Slacker films from there, isn't it? Of course, we were all of the Slacker generation, weren't we? You
that's
and me.
right.
Now look at us. Look like... People can't believe that people used to live like that, wandering around. Remember in the past. So before we went to that track, we left the exciting question hanging in the air with a resonance listener about you've grown a beard.
My gigantic beard.
Why? Why on earth have you done that?
Well, there's so many reasons, but the simplest reason is that I'm doing a one-man show in character, and the character is a kind of East European animator.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that's exactly what you now look like.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Well, that's the object of the exercise.
Right.
And it's to describe the beard to the listeners, it's by no means trendy in any kind of magic numbers or Kings of Leon way. In fact, maybe it's a little bit like the magic numbers, but it grows out. It's like an explosion from the lower half of my face.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of David Bellamy style mass, but it's very black. I'm quite pleased with the blackness of the beard.
Yeah.
And the main reason I grew it, I suppose, was to help me get into the character, also to avoid having to apply a fake beard every night, which is bad for the skin. And also, I used to do it for this character, and it just looked rubbish. It just looked fake, you know. And also, I just relished the chance of actually experimenting with beard growth. You know?
That's funny, actually, because Steve, today's engineer, you work in hair, don't you?
Yeah, work in a trichology clinic.
Works in a trichology clinic where he makes hair chemicals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I could get you some stuff to like
to maintain
smooth your beard.
Yeah.
People, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's like a conversational crutch. I'm not sure to what extent people are genuinely interested in the beard, but certainly it's all anyone talks to me about now. When they see me, they just go, "Wow, is that a real beard?" First of all, when they see me in a social situation, as if I would go out and glue a beard on before going to a party, just to get conversation going. Yes, it is a real beard, I say, and then they say. Do you condition it and shampoo it, or do you use soap? Why would I avoid using shampoo on my beard?
Well, I don't know.
No, of course I don't. I do.
But maybe the character would. What's his name, this Eastern European
He's called
anime?
Pavel.
Pavel. And presumably you thinking about Svankmajer and people like that, are you? Or
yeah. I mean, to be honest, he's a fairly two-dimensional caricature of kind of pretentious artist people.
Right.
But... initially, obviously now he's amazingly three-dimensional, very well fleshed out, incredibly engaging, and the show is...
Has he got a bad leg or anything like that?
No, there's no other physical kinks.
That often helps.
Hair.
If you give someone... That was Stan Lee from Marvel Comics' main breakthrough. He managed to make characters two-dimensional rather than one-dimensional by giving them... They might have a bad leg or...
Yeah.
Be, something like that. You need. Or
that's not a bad idea.
A bad leg, or it doesn't have to be his leg. It could be his ear or something.
Yeah, blind in one eye or something.
I don't know. You know where you're going with this. It's up to you.
I'm still open to suggestions. I know there's only a month left, but there's still a lot of work to be done on my show.
What country is he from?
He's from a made-up country.
Right.
Because the thing is, my accent sort of skids all over Europe, so I didn't want to pin it down. But I would say he's from somewhere near Finland, / Russia, up that end of Europe.
And was he working? Was he working as an animator under a totalitarian government at any point?
No, not really. He came to the UK. He was very bored where he was, and he came to the UK to start animation. But because he's relatively young, so more or less the same age as me, he's not like a real old school.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the only jobs that he could get were at Nickelodeon and stuff. So it's the travails of this kind of very avant-garde animator trying to get gigs on Spongebob Squarepants and stuff like that.
Spongebob Squarepants is a bit avant-garde, isn't it?
Yeah, it is in its own way. But as far as the actual look of the thing, the aesthetic of the animation, it's the polar opposite. Because my guy is stuck in the school of kind of wavy lines dancing and everything being more or less black and stuff.
Do you remember that Hungarian one when we were kids about two dogs? That used to. Now, someone told me years later that was full of explicit criticism of the state, and it was made under the Soviet government in Hungary.
Yeah.
But I wasn't aware of that as a child. It seemed to be about a thin dog and a fat dog running around over sort of European free jazz.
That sounds more exciting than a lot of the ones I remember. They're all invariably sort of, at the end it would all say nominated for a jury prize at the Czech Animation Festival.
The Mole was, of course, a big Czech one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah. And do you remember Ludwig?
Yeah, was that Eastern European?
I think it was.
It was voiced by... Oh yeah, Ludwig. Yeah, God, yeah, that was like...
Ludwig was like it was like a sort of Fabergé egg from space.
Flew around.
Yeah, that would occasionally reveal doors within its body, and out would pop musical instruments. That's an amazing idea for
a kids animation. That to kids today.
Well, you could, but the Fabergé egg would be heavily ironic, and it would just sort of say things like, "Talk to the hand."
It would be a hip hop egg.
Yeah.
I met one of the writers of SpongeBob Squarepants.
Oh, yeah.
in Aspen, and he said that the moral majority came down on it because they thought that he was gay,
Right.
Spongebob Squarepants, because he had a handbag, which meant that it was a bad influence on children. They were trying to get it banned, obviously, the Christian right in America. And so, for a laugh, the animators filled their offices in the studios with things they'd got off hardcore gay porn sites where they put SpongeBob SquarePants heads on them. Then forgetting that because it was Nickelodeon or whatever in America, once a week parties of children would have to come round and they'd have to go, and this is where we draw the whatever, and hurriedly had to take them all down as they realised that there was a usual party of kids going through.
Yeah.
But that seemed to me to have a real kind of underground comic book sensibility in some ways.
SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, have you got children?
No, I haven't. I haven't got any.
Well, I've got.
I'm not impotent.
No,
but I haven't.
Listen,
I just
don't get
haven't.
defensive
No,
about
I
it.
haven't
There's
got
still
any.
a lot of time if you
Thanks.
want them.
I haven't
You
met
can
any.
always hire them
I've been,
or adopt
I've just split up with someone after.
Oh no,
So,
I'm really sorry.
It's all right, you know.
It's the worst question, isn't it? Have you got
No,
children?
have
It's
you
just a
got
can
children,
of
man?
worms. I have, but they died. No, I'm sorry. I was trying to reciprocate
No, it's all right.
with a larger can of worms.
Yeah.
But if it's not
I've
true,
got all
it's-
these records though. Look.
Yeah, no, they're better than children, Stuart. They really are. They're so much more rewarding. But I do have children, and
Yeah.
I'm glad to say that they are alive, and that was a horrible joke on my part. But they're a couple of little boys, and they do watch a great deal of television, I'm ashamed to say. But so it's always a blessing when something good comes on, and SpongeBob SquarePants is certainly one of the better ones of the kind of heavily ironic, semi-subversive post-Simpsons cartoons around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of them is you probably don't watch a great deal of kids' TV, I hope, but one of the worst shows I've seen is called something like My Fairly Odd Parents,
I haven't seen that.
and it's just all this. Did you ever see Animaniacs? Do you ever remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
It was that kind of really crap, by the numbers sort of subversion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the same. There's so much of it around. So many cartoons that think they're being like The Simpsons or think they're being really postmodern that I can't believe appeal to anyone really.
Yeah, you see the same sort of thing where networks like Fox or NBC try and make what they imagine an HBO show is.
Yeah.
And they think that means it has to have sex and swearing in it.
That's
But what
right.
they don't realise is that The Sopranos and whatever has sex and swearing, but also really great acting and scripts.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why it's good. It's not just that there's nudity and swearing. Talking about this animator guy you're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
you're saying that he's come over. The character's come over here, Pavel, yeah, and he wants to do art, but he's trapped in Nickelodeon. Does that give you an opportunity to explore any frustrations that you might have yourself as a writer and performer to do with the mediums that you have to work in?
God, I hadn't thought about that.
That seems so obvious. I was almost embarrassed to ask it.
I don't
it seemed
know.
like pop psychology by numbers.
Yeah. Oh well, maybe that's true.
Because earlier, Adam, you were talking about having to do, being offered to do quiz shows and things.
Yeah.
And working with Keith Harris.
That's right. Well, it's quite a clear division in my head between jobs that you get where you make money and things that you like to do and you feel are worthwhile. And the two are generally completely mutually exclusive. And
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're lucky enough, it's very cliche, but if you're lucky enough to be able to make money out of what you like doing, then that's great. But the majority of people aren't in that position.
Yeah.
So-
I thought I was about to do that.
Yeah.
With Jerry Springer the Opera, and then it's been stopped.
How come?
by It's been stopped by we were going to tour it and all the protests have closed it down.
Really?
So, yeah, but actually in a way it would have really screwed over my entire worldview if I finally had got paid a lot of money for something that I liked.
Yeah.
As it is, I can carry on in pessimistic opposition.
Yeah.
So
But you see, you never do commercials and stuff like that, though. Would you do them, or do you just say
I got
no?
offered one once, but at the time I said no.
Yeah.
But I probably would do it now because I'd like to earn a lot of money
Yeah, exactly.
and spend it on things
Yeah.
because I haven't done that yet, and I feel like the clock's against me.
Yeah.
I might go into animation.
It's there's not a lot of money to be made in animation,
No,
surely, and it's
no.
so labour intensive.
Yeah.
It's just a total dead end. That's what I find amusing about it, is that this character would just be in this nightmare job trying to get work. And what kind of work do you get if you're an avant-garde animator? Anyway, so that's kind of the basis of the show in a lot of ways, is what do you do if you want to survive as this kind of extreme artist, especially if you're a complete anachronism and really that no one values your work whatsoever.
Yeah.
As someone who works on the extremes of the avant-garde. Like I used to think about me and Joe, sometimes what we did was, I used to think of ourselves as being like a comedy version of The Fall or something. Do you know what I mean? Like working away, plugging away in the margins. But then one day I sort of realised that maybe we were just the comedy version of Shed 7. And, the reason we were obscure is because we were a bit rubbish. And really, we wanted to be accepted. We wanted to be a mainstream proposition. We weren't like The Fall at all in that.
What if you wanted to be a mainstream proposition? Yeah. Why did you make such strange and peculiar programs?
Because we thought that the time that people would find it, and we, all the programs that we liked. You sort of spoilt with The Simpsons, really, our generations, because you think, well, look, if you do a really good show, then you can get both. You can have mass acceptance.
Yeah.
But actually, The Simpsons is sort of weird.
It's a strange
anomaly.
exception.
Yeah.
And also, it gives people false hope and encourages them to waste their lives by thinking that they could do that, and you can't. It will never happen again.
That's right.
It would be stopped now if anyone tried to do it. Let's hear a piece of music. And it was that we'll maybe talk about this after. It was that Live 8 yesterday. So here's a version from a New Zealand punk Christmas album of "Do They Know It's Christmas" by a bloke called Matt Alien.
It's Christmas.
You're listening to Resonance 104.4 FM. London's source of nonsense, and that was someone called Matt Alien from New Zealand doing the Live Aid single "Do They Know It's Christmas." This is single parent one-way family favourites, or one-way single parent family favourites. I've been working on this show 2 or 3 years now. I still often can't remember its exact name.
It's a long title.
It is. It was invented by Billy Jenkins, the blues jazz guitarist. He's a funny bloke. And I'm Stewart Lee, and this is Adam Buxton's with me. We've been talking about his new Edinburgh show about a East European animator called Pavel.
It's big time. Here we come.
No. And that was, we just played that because you were saying you'd watched a bit of...
I watched a lot.
You watched it all?
Yeah, I watched a lot of Live 8.
Right.
Had it on in the background while I was doing other things. I wasn't just watching it, otherwise I would have started.
What was the highlight for you?
The highlight was Pink Floyd.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, because I didn't realise. I've just been in a box for a while, and I didn't realise they completely reformed. Obviously not with Syd Barrett.
No.
Even though that was a technical possibility.
Yeah.
But there's Dave Gilmour and Rick Wright and Mason, joined by what's his name?
Roger Waters.
Roger Waters.
The evil one that everyone hates.
The evil one, yeah. The one where he's got his voice wasn't quite up to it last night, but still it was very emotional, and they're amazing, and Dave Gilmour sounded brilliant. He's got a really good voice. You sort of forget with Pink Floyd, because he's such an uncharismatic frontman, Dave Gilmour.
Yeah.
You forget what a good voice he's got. And they were just so good, and and people in the crowd were so into it and so excited that, oh my God, they've got back together again, and they're actually good, and they're making a really good noise. And they were playing the tracks. They played a couple of tracks from Dark Side of the Moon and some things from Wish You Were Here, but they played them absolutely note for note,
right,
like the record, which is sort of what you want, really.
Yeah, at an event like that.
Yeah.
You don't. The 200,000 people there are not interested in seeing some variation or spin put on it. They want to hear. I was in the pub I was at the Red Rose in Finsbury Park doing a gig. I just saw a bit on the screen. I saw Mariah Carey, Sting, who was trying to jazz up. He was trying to. He was playing around a bit. Wasn't quite working. Mucking about with the classics, and that Velvet Revolver supergroup of people from Guns N' Roses and Stone Temple Pilots and things.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Oh, is that Scott Weiland, the front man?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a creep.
Peculiar group. I mean, I felt culturally disinherited by that performance. Do you know what I mean? Because Stone Temple Pilots were supposed to be out of grunge and out of punk, and Guns N' Roses still, for me, were like a sexist, bad rock band.
That's
and
right.
I thought, it all doesn't make any difference now.
Yeah.
They can all be friends camping around on stage.
No, they were rotten. They were absolutely rotten. And good showman, though. I mean, they knew what they were doing. But that you just got the opinion.
By a good showman, you mean he had a hat?
He had a hat and he had a ciggy, which was constantly seemed to burn at exactly the same length the whole time and dangled rakishly from his lip. Yeah. And then he would, during his solos, this is Slash I'm talking about now.
Oh, right. The other man had a hat, though, as well.
Oh, yes, Scott Weiland. He had a little fascist, dirty bondage hat or something, And but Slash would go to the front of the stage and sort of strike a pose for all the photographers who would push each other out of the way to try and get their shot and everything. He was really working the crowd. They knew exactly what they were doing. And
watching Slash from Guns N' Roses in Velvet Revolver performing to 200,000 people yesterday at Hyde Park. Were there any performance skills there that you feel you can bring to bear on the story of Pavel, the Eastern European animator, this August in Edinburgh? You're talking about working the crowd, striking poses.
Yeah. I'm gonna, I don't need monitors, but I'm gonna have some like cardboard monitors made just so I can go up to the front of the audience and just sort of lean on one with one foot up there. I'm just going to put one foot on the monitor, put my hand on the other foot on my knee, and I'm just going to lean forward into the audience and point at them for a while.
I did that at Glastonbury last year.
Did you?
Yeah, on the comedy stage.
Yeah.
And it was really full for some reason, and no one was throwing mud. It was
and
really
did
exciting.
were you still like talking, doing your routine with
yeah.
the mic and stuff, and leaning right forward like Iggy Pop or something?
Yeah, I felt it's probably the last time I could do that without it looking a bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people go, "What's that old man doing?"
He's a rock and roll comic.
The rock and roll. You sort of escaped that with the Adam and Joe show. I think there was a weird kind of phase in the early '90s where people were supposed to be kind of like pop stars. I think what was nice about your show was it returned comedy to the people that should own it, which is geeks and nerds, not lads who like sport. I think it was good.
Yeah, I remember.
Is that fair?
That is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. No, we were very much. We didn't have much of a manifesto, but what there was of it was that we would always smile when we had our picture taken.
Yeah.
I remember thinking we've always got to smile because I was just so bored of looking at bands and everyone was just grimacing, and I was thinking, do me a favour, honestly. And everyone wanted to look like a pop star even if they weren't actually in a band. And I thought, well, we won't pretend that we're pop stars. We're clearly not. So we'll smile. And that was one idea I had, smiling for photos. And the other one was just that it was genuinely a homemade thing. It was like making a tape for a friend of music and stuff.
Yeah, I really liked that about it.
Yeah. So that's all we wanted to get across, was for it to be like a fanzine, for it to be genuinely a thing born of enthusiasm rather than.
Do you think you can see? Do you think you can see aspects of the sort of way that you did things in other stuff now?
I don't know.
Go on, sound arrogant.
Well, some people say this every now and again and go, they like Don Jolly came along and he took one thing you guys used to do, i.e. a kind of prank element to the show, and made a whole career out of it. But then I thought, well, people had done pranks before us, and we weren't the only people who ever did that. Plus, we stole a lot of ideas from other people and things. It's just a continuum of ideas. There's always the same ideas that fly around. It's a question of how you do them. Like we used to put little human mouths into these Star Wars figures and stuff and have them chatting to each other. But that was a trick that's been used many times and continues to be used.
Right.
Like Rory Bremner used to do that as well. And there's that bit in Pulp Fiction where they're watching a little cartoon of like a Eskimo with a human mouth wiped in.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. So things like that, people sort of go, they see that someone else has done it and they go, oh, they nicked it off you. And it never occurs to me that people would steal stuff, deliberately.
Yeah, well, I think actually when people are very young, they kind of assimilate stuff because they kind of forget that it belonged to someone almost. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's great, I like that, so we'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. And you hope that you'll put a significant enough spin on it so that it won't be just total pointless plagiarism.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen... The only thing that we were doing that obviously lots of people do now, which wasn't so common when we started doing it, was using fairly affordable bits of video equipment to make the whole show. We were using the PD 150s, the sort of little grey DV cameras that you see a lot of Soho gits making documentaries on. And that became, a lot of people, so-called documentary makers, would make their shows on the same equipment that we used. You were
making a documentary at the Fall at one point, weren't you?
Yeah.
What happened to that?
It never got off the ground. It was something I always wanted to do.
But I remember being at a gig. I think it was in '99 at a town and country club, or whatever that's called now, the
Yeah.
Forum, and there was your film crew were on stage filming them. Was that your lot?
No, that wasn't.
Oh, wasn't
us.
you?
I
Right,
don't think
right,
so. I
right.
don't think so. We were. Yeah, that was somebody else. I mean, I've sort of bumped into him a few times. We did a little bit with him on our show, on the Adam and Joe show. That is where we went through his record collection on a little segment we did called Vinyl Justice.
Yeah.
And he was nice about it. Eventually, like he got through it. He got pretty wasted. He got pretty drunk on vodka that we bought him to keep him happy. Like he turned up and he was really completely sober and very nice and quite charming, quite quiet. And then things went well and he was quite mad for a while and sort of shouted at us and intimidated us in an amusing way and had some interesting records and stuff. So it was all going pretty well. And then suddenly he just clammed up. He just started staring into the distance and not saying anything at all. And so I said, "Hey, okay, Mark, are you all right? Are you upset about something?" And he just didn't speak. And then eventually he said, how much am I getting paid? I said, "Well, we don't really pay people for this thing. We haven't really got it in the budget. I thought that was made clear to you." "How much am I being paid?" I don't know. How much do you want?" £200.
Yeah. I know, I've heard that about it. It's kind of funny. It's sort of people that are out of the loop a bit. I mean, he turned up on set of 24-hour party people and kind of forced himself into a scene and then demanded payment. But he could have just sorted it out.
Yeah.
And it would have been. There's something. I mean, I understand it as a stand-up. I always feel when I do a gig and it's a door split in a little club and you get £40 cash. Even now, at the age of 37, having been doing this since I was 20, I walk away with this feeling of having, I've beaten the system.
Yeah.
I much kind of prefer that to getting a cheque for £110 for a radio repeat or something. It kind of feels like proper work. I think there's
exactly.
a kind of artisan thing of like. So yeah, he was probably trying to get something out of it like that.
No, I didn't begrudge him that at all.
Yeah.
I rushed over to the cash point and got the money out, and as soon as he got it, he seemed quite ashamed that he'd kicked up a fuss.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was or not, but he immediately mellowed and just started chatting in a completely normal way. And,
you don't get paid anything for this, don't you?
Yeah.
In fact, you have to pay.
What?
To be here.
£200.
You have to
I'll
pay
go over to the cash
£200
point.
to promote your Edinburgh show. Where's it on, Pavel, and what's it called, actually?
It's called I Pavel.
Yeah.
And it's on at the Cavern in the Pleasance.
Are you doing any... now, that's in Edinburgh. Of course,
Yeah.
lots of people listen to this on the internet. We sometimes get emails from Tibet. But most people, though, live in London, where everyone should live. So are you doing any previews?
I'm doing a preview at the New Cross Comedy Club.
Oh, the Amersham Arms, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And that's on the last Monday of July.
Yeah.
I think it's the...
I'm going to look and tell everyone. That'll
Yeah,
be the
nice one.
25th of
Yeah,
July.
yeah, exactly.
Monday the 25th of July at the Amersham Arms in New Cross.
Yeah. Apart from that, I'm not sure. I'm trying to avoid booking any in because I've still got so much to do.
Yeah, I'm doing them now, and I haven't got enough stuff to do really.
Yeah.
But time passes. Anyway, let's hear a full track. This is off the last album, the New Real Fall album, Country on the Click, and it's called Janet and Johnny. It's Resonance 104.4 FM. Where else would you hear The Fall at 1:45
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday. Nowhere, only in
Capital
your...
Gold, maybe.
Capital Gold, maybe. Ah, ha, ha, ha. This is One Way Single Parent Family Favourites. I'm Stewart. My guest today is Adam Buxton. He's going to Edinburgh with a new show. Is there anything else you want to tell us about quickly? Because I've got to get in your next choice and some problematic free improvisation before the end of the show.
No, honestly, there's nothing people really need to know, I don't think.
There's nothing people need to know.
No, I'm trying to think of something.
What else are you up to? Yeah, that thing was good about that thing you did at Christmas of a rock band.
Oh, thanks.
I really liked that. I watched that.
It was this thing
What was
for
it
Channel
called?
4 called The Last Chances.
Yeah, it was great.
It
Obviously scheduled in such a way as they had no plans for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They stripped it, I think is the term in TV, across 1 week, which means they showed the whole thing, the whole series of 6 in 1 week.
Yeah.
On E4, and then they showed a kind of Frankenstein of the whole series, like a 2-part thing on Channel 4 on like Christmas Eve and the day before Christmas Eve, and they told us this was happening, Channel 4, with big smiles on their faces, and said, "Great news!" It was like Futurama, you know, the guy, "Good news! It's going out over a couple of days, just before Christmas." So we were all crestfallen and said, "Oh, that's bad. That's a massive vote of no confidence, isn't it?" They said, "No, what are you talking about? It's Christmas. It's the best time of year. Everyone watches TV at Christmas."
But if you write a 6 half-hour thing, you presumably write each half-hour with its own integrated dramatic arc, rather than... As, you know, it just seemed insane. Yeah,
it was disappointing. And anyway, it wasn't really... I don't think it was sort of sexy enough for Channel 4 at that point. And, you know, I just saw this show called Sugar Rush the other day, supposedly about Julie Burchill's early life. But that's also set in Brighton, which our series was.
Right.
And sort of skirts around similar territory, youth culture territory, a little bit. But it's so clearly much more what Channel 4 wants, which is a sort of insane hybrid of Desperate Housewives and Bad Girls and Footballers' Wives and stuff like that, you know, which our show definitely wasn't. So no, it's not coming back in any kind of form. But it was really good fun to do it, and very, very instructive. It was the first time I'd co-written anything like that. And certainly first time I'd done any kind of acting of any kind. And I really want to do more. Hope I get the chance. Making it difficult for anyone to cast me at the moment with the beard.
But all the Eastern European animator roles will be coming your way.
Yeah.
Let's hear your last choice. This is something by the Monks. What were they all about?
I don't know that much about the Monks, except you probably know more than I do. Were they were around in the late 60s and...
Well, they were American servicemen stationed in Germany who stayed there after they were decommissioned and formed and shaved their heads and formed a strange garage punk band whose feedback and noise techniques anticipated the Velvet Underground and other subsequent things in the same vein.
That's amazing. You could be reading that from the back of the CD, but you're not.
I'm not. It's not in front of me, is it? Which track did we choose?
I think it's called Oh How To Do Now.
Oh How To Do Now. Here it is then. That was the Monks from American servicemen displaced in Germany in the late 60s. What was that one called again, Adam?
Oh, How To Do Now.
Oh, How To Do Now. And there's a funny clip floating around on weird bootlegs of them doing that on German television in the late 60s, dressed as monks, with tonsures, a rock haircut.
Yeah, with real little patches shaved onto their heads.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, that's not a look that Simon Cowell's going to be foisting on his next project.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we've had a good hour.
Yeah.
The conversation's kind of come full circle. We started off talking about how you, in the pursuit of your art, have grown hair. And we've ended with talking about some men who, in the pursuit of their art, cut their hair off.
See, that is the ultimate anti-rock statement, though, isn't it? That you could make if you were a band, is to shave a pate onto top of your head like a monk. And there's no band that ever would. They talk about, you know, being for real and stuff, but I'd like to see one band out there actually do that like the Monks did. Then I'd be impressed.
But, you know, people would then accuse them of copying the Monks' hair.
That's true, you can't really win, can you?
Okay, we're going to wrap it up and have something up to the end of the show. You've been listening to One Way Single Parent Family Favourites on Resonance 104.4 FM. I was Stewart Lee. Next week I'm not here, so it'll be either David Quantick or Pete Sargent. I'm back on the 17th. I'm going to have lots of young women comedians in talking about the unique problems that face them and, you know, kind of ideas, how being a woman affects them. I won't talk about any of that. And don't forget, on Tuesday at lunchtime, Victoria Gardens, you can see Billy Jenkins live for free, who invented this show. I've been talking to Adam Buxton. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And taking us up to sing. Is it still the Pensioners, Furious Pensioners programme at 2 o'clock?
Indeed.
Great. So taking us up to Calling All Pensioners, which I've missed in my 6 months away. Here's a track from a new album from Derek Bailey, Mick Beck and Paul Hessian. The album's available from the Discus website, www.discus.com. music.co.uk. The album's called Meanwhile Back in Sheffield, and this is called Raining.